And welcome to this English lesson about communication. We're going to talk about a wide variety of things this morning when it comes to communication. So I went way back to start this lesson, and I went to the word marathon. So the marathon is an event at the Olympic Games where people run a little over 26 miles. I'm not sure what that is in kilometers, but the marathon is a very long race. It's a long distance race. And the history of the marathon is that it was a run that someone named Philippides. Now, I apologize to Athanasios if I say this wrong, but he ran from the Battle of Marathon to Athens to report that they had won the battle. Hopefully, I have my history correct, but that is one example of how messages used to be delivered, how communication used to happen. If you wanted to send a message to someone far away, you literally had to go and give the message to them or send another person. So anyways, I have never run a marathon. I find the marathon intimidating. When something's intimidating, it means that you're just scared to even try it. I have in my life run in short races, like 5-kilometer races, but I don't think I could ever run a marathon. After that, people used carrier pigeons for a little while. So you would put your message on the leg of the bird, of the pigeon, and the pigeon would fly somewhere and deliver that message. So just a couple older methods. There was also when people wanted to communicate from one ship to another, they developed a system where they could use flags. I believe it's called semaphore. And they would use flags to communicate. I think this is the letter B, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, just a few of the older ways. And then eventually we invented mail. So mail is something that has been quite common for a very long time on this planet. I remember when I was a kid, because my parents came from Holland, we would occasionally get mail from people in Holland because my mom and dad had relatives there. And I remember sometimes my mom would send a letter to her friends and family in Holland. So she would go and she would get a stamp, and she would get a special stamp so that it could go airmail. And she would send a letter. And I do remember that as a kid, it was always cool to receive a letter from people from Europe, from another country. So notice in there, I was using two phrases, right? You send a letter or you can receive a letter. We also say that you put a letter in the mail, okay? So if someone said, hey, I'll send you a birthday card, I'll put it in the mail, or I'll put that card in the mail. So you can say that you send it or that you put it in the mail. I do want to say thank you to Neymar Vargas for becoming a member. Thank you so much, Neymar, for deciding to help support my channel. That's very awesome of you. So I did use a couple of words in there. One is stamp or postage stamp. So in order to send something in the mail, if you want to send a letter, you need to buy a postage stamp. We just say stamp, and you need to put a stamp on the envelope. So that's one of the first things you need to do. And then you do need an envelope. So bear with me here because I say this word two ways. Sometimes I say envelope and sometimes I say envelope. Okay. I'm not sure which is the American pronunciation and which is the British pronunciation, but I could very well say to Jen, I'm going to go buy some envelopes today. Or I could say, I'm going to go buy some envelopes today. So sorry about that. Sometimes in Canada, we have more than one way to pronounce something. So hey, I do want to just pause and say hi to everyone who is here. I do want to just take a moment to verify that things are working. Give me a sec here. Sounds like everything is working great. So that is awesome. Just let me click to where I'm supposed to be here. And I do want to say again, a shout out to Brent from American English with This Guy. And just again, I noticed on Brent's channel at 9 o'clock my time. So when this live stream is done, he has a premiere of a video, and that video has a special guest in it. So if you have not checked out American English with This Guy's channel, YouTube channel, you should. And maybe go and watch that video as soon as we're done here, because I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you to Prokhor Marchenko for becoming a member. Awesome. Thank you for deciding to join and support my channel. That is awesome of you, Prokhor. Thank you very, very much. So yes, we only say stamp one way, but we say envelope or envelope. And I don't want to go into the third pronunciation because there is another one which has a different meaning. At some point, they invented something called the telegram. I'm not super familiar with the telegram, but they invented the telegram, and you could send a short message to someone using a telegram. So a telegraph operator would send the message, and the message itself is called a telegram. Let me just check one other thing here for a moment. Okay, there we go. And they would send the telegram using Morse code. So Morse code is when you send a series of dots and dashes. And I think it sounds like this. Beep, 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 beep. That's my impression of Morse code. But we have moved pretty far away from a lot of these types of things. I'm trying to go through the history of communication quickly, because I think it's a little bit boring, but you probably don't. You're probably enjoying this a lot. Let's see here. Eventually, too, they invented shortwave radio. So shortwave radio allowed for wireless communication. So people were able to communicate. Oh, we have a fly. We have a fly at the live stream. I have not had a fly in the live stream since I used to do these at school. So maybe it's the same fly. The fly used to have a name, but I can't remember what that name was. So shortwave radio allowed people on one side of the Atlantic Ocean to begin communicating with people on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. And then eventually we had the telephone. To me, the telephone is the first type of communication that I remember in my life. As a child, I remember that we had a telephone. My mom and dad would make phone calls. So when you use a telephone, you say you're going to make a phone call. Oh, I need to make a phone call today. You can also say that you're going to phone someone. Often in English, we take a noun, and if it's a new item, we change it into a verb. So in the case of the telephone, we did that. You could say, I need to telephone someone, but we kind of shortened it, and now we say, I need to phone someone. Or you can say, did Joe phone today? And that's how you would say it. We also refer to the communication by phone as a phone call. So you could say, I need to make a phone call, or you could say, I need to phone someone. So, and then just the word call as well, right? I need to call someone usually refers to using the phone. It's not like, hey, Joe. So that's not what we mean when we say that we need to call someone. We usually are talking about making a phone call. So there's a couple different kinds of telephones. When your phone is this old-fashioned kind, we call it a landline. We call it a landline because the phone has a wire, and that wire goes into the wall and eventually into the ground. And sometimes you refer to a phone as being connected to the phone lines. So a landline would simply not be a smartphone. A landline is connected to a wire. Actually, a few years ago in my part of Canada, many people started to get rid of their landlines because their smartphone replaced how they communicated when they needed to make a phone call. So they got rid of their landlines. We still have a landline, and I also have my cell phone. Let's see here. Khaled says, guys, is there any sound problem? And then Brent says the audio is perfect for me. I thought the audio was working really good. Yeah, it sounds pretty good to me, Khaled. So hopefully you can figure out what's happening there. And then, of course, we got these. So this is what I would call a smartphone. We used to call it a cellular phone or a cell phone. We call it a mobile phone or a mobile phone, depending on where you are. But this is now probably the most common way to communicate. And if you're wondering, I have a Pixel 3. I have a Google Pixel 3 is the type of phone I have. Earlier, Rod asked about what has changed the world of communications the most, or what method of communicating has changed things the most. I think the internet and then now the smartphone, and those two together, because the smartphone needs the internet, have probably changed how we communicate with each other the most. If I'm at work and I need to get groceries, I will text Jen. This is how I text with my thumbs, to ask if there's anything that I need. Let's see here. Javier says, "Hi Bob, could you please remove the mic from the screen? It looks like a dead mouse." Yeah, sorry about that. But I do need it as close as I can have it to me. And here, I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what it looks like. I guess I don't need the wind protector on right now, but I'm going to leave it there. So sorry, I want the audio to be really good. We had fax machines for a while. In fact, at my school, we still have a fax machine. A fax machine is something where you put a piece of paper in and it scans the piece of paper and it sends it to another fax machine and a copy of it comes out, what we would call a facsimile. So the English word facsimile means a copy of something. So yes, a fax machine was quite popular for a while, probably for almost 20 years. And you'll see again, we took the word fax and we turned it into a verb. So I would fax something to someone. So if someone needed a copy of something, I could say, "Oh, I'll fax it to you." And I would take what I needed to send them, the piece of paper, I would punch in their fax number, and I would stick it in the fax machine, and it would go through. And then I would basically say, "Yes, I faxed it to you earlier today." Or, "Did you get the fax? I faxed it to you earlier today." So that's just another example of how we name something, and then we take the noun, and we can sometimes create a verb out of it. We often do that with new technology. And then we have email. Email came along when I was young. I remember my first email address, how excited I was. I could email my friends. I was at university at the time, and so I could email my friends and they could email me back. Notice again, I got email, I got an email account, I got an email address, and I was able to email my friends. So that's how you would talk about, "Oh, can you send me an email?" I did send you an email. I emailed you yesterday. So notice how I'm flipping the word email in and out as a noun and a verb. Let me just check one thing for a moment. I just want to say hi to the 462 people. That's crazy. 462 people who are watching. Thank you so much for being here. If you're new here, don't forget there is a subscribe button right there. You should click it and give me a thumbs up if this video is helping you learn a bit of English. Let's keep moving along though. We also text people. So in some countries, you'll call this an SMS, like send me an SMS. In my part of Canada, we just call it texting. So people will text each other. They will send each other a text or a text message. So the other day, I sent a text to Dave the Canadian, and Dave the Canadian texted me back, okay? I could say I sent him a text message, and I could say he texted me back. But generally, we just use the word text. So the other day, I texted Dave the Canadian, and he texted me back. Later, I'm going to text Dave the Canadian again. So that's how we talk about that. We do sometimes say SMS, but it's not as common. We just say text. And most people, when they text, they use their thumbs, but some people now use swipe on their keyboard. And now something that wasn't as popular 4 or 5 months ago, was fairly widespread in usage, but now is very common because of COVID, is the use of video calling, video calls, or video chat. There's a number of ways to refer to it. But generally what we've done is this. We have a piece of software called Skype, and you can use Skype to talk with someone online. And we've turned the word Skype also into a verb. So later today, I'm going to Skype Rod VIP. Okay, sounds kind of funny, but I'm going to have a Skype call with him, and I can use it as a verb. We haven't done this with Zoom. Generally with Zoom, we just say, "Oh, I'm going to meet with someone via Zoom," or "I'm going to have a Zoom meeting with someone later today." But Skype has become a verb, and so has FaceTime. Like, "Oh, I'm going to FaceTime my cousin later today," or "I'm going to FaceTime my mom on Sunday to see how she's doing." FaceTime, again, is another way to do a video call or to do video chat. So let's see here. I'm just going to check the chat for a sec. A few things going on there. And then just a few extra things that I want to make sure I talk about. None of this would be possible. We wouldn't be able to have a world where everyone can communicate easily without two things. Number one is satellites. So a satellite is something that they put in orbit around the Earth. If you are a really